All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today for our topic of this week, which is data buying for retail banking. And I think we're going to get a little bit broader than that as well. I'm here today with Allison Segraves. I'm Andy Hanna, and I'm the executive director of 1486 Labs. And 1486 Labs, of course, has generated the Blue Street data community, where we're very focused on helping buyers and sellers find each other and find the right fit for price and quality, which we'll talk a little bit. We'll talk more about a little bit later. I'm also the chairman of the advisory board for responsible data science at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm on the faculty of the analytics. I'm on the analytics faculty at the University of Pittsburgh. And lastly, I serve as an executive at Liaison, where we use data to help universities enroll the best fit students and graduate more of them. Allison, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time. Please give us your background.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Allison Segraves. I'm currently on the faculty of Carnegie Mellon's Chief Data and AI Officer program, which, by the way, is a fantastic program. Certainly reach out to me if you're interested in that. We're just starting up our new cohort. And before that, I was Chief Data Officer at a top US bank for 5 years. So I'm very familiar with this space. I feel your pain. It's such an exciting space, but it's a challenging space, and there's so much opportunity, and we're going to get into that today. So really pleased to be here.
Thank you. Great to have you. And so briefly, the different topics today, we're going to talk about, in a broad sense, some of the modern data problems, and specifically around data acquisition and use. And then we're going to talk about how do we think differently about price and quality when it comes to buying data. And finally, get a little bit more specific about some retail banking solutions. So this is just a little bit of a picture to set off a conversation that Allison and I had the other day about thinking about data from 3 perspectives: the raw materials that go into your analytics programs, the use cases that we're using them for, and then the overall infrastructure of being able to provide the results of these analytic programs. Gonna just take this off of the share screen so we can be a little bit bigger for the audience, Allison. But I think the conversation that we had the other day was just great, and sort of puts an analogy out there that helps people understand sort of how to think about data in a modern sense. So would you share that with our audience?
Sure. So, data is the raw material of the digital economy, and now what's becoming the AI economy. And I found in my experience, and this goes back to the pre-AI era, and it's now even true in the AI era, is that there's, I think, a lot of focus. People get really excited about the things that are tangible. People get really excited about infrastructure and the raw materials, but there tends to be less focus on the use cases. So the way I kind of think about it is kind of like from a food analogy, which is like, people, if you're having guests, people want to have a great kitchen. They want to have all the tools. They want to have, all the stuff, and go out and buy a bunch of food. But then perhaps the last thing people think about is, well, what are my actual recipes? What am I actually going to serve? In a data sense, what's the problem I'm trying to solve? And that truly, in my era of being a chief data officer, that was one of the big issues, is really talking about, do we understand the problem we're trying to solve? What data do we need for that? And that's currently, I think, one of the biggest issues in the AI era is we've had POCs all over the place, but there needs to be more focus on what's the business problem we're trying to solve. So we'll get into that more.
Yeah, why do you think that is? So I mean, I think I've always talked about, being in the data business since really the 1990s. It feels like we're always trying to focus on building better data sets, or focus on, like, your example is like the kitchen. It's like we're worried about, sorry, do we have the best freezer or the microwave or the oven or whatever? And it seems like we never quite get there. We never get to that objective that we're trying to seek. Why do you think that is?
I almost think it's practically, it might actually come down to human nature. The fact that this cycle is repeating itself now in AI is interesting. And I actually co-authored a piece in Harvard Business Review, Why Chief Data and AI Officers Are Set Up to Fail. And we talk about this idea of really focusing on tangible outcomes. I think part of it is because it's tangible to invest in infrastructure. It's
Uh,
tangible to acquire data. It's tangible to compile data sets. And I think there's this, I think we substitute activity for outcomes and purpose. I almost think it's just a fact of human nature that we have to really kind of fight against, to really think about, what is our strategy? What data do we need to understand our customers, for example, to offer better services, whatever our business strategy is, whatever those outcomes are? We need to start, with the end in mind and build backwards. That I think that's true in almost any arena, but it's not the natural instinct.
and so and I like your idea, your concept of starting with the end in mind, and because that kind of leads to, well, if we know what the end is, then we can sort of gather the recipes. If we're going to make a meal, we're going to have an appetizer, we're going to have a main course, so we can gather the recipes. How do organizations typically come up with those recipes? Like, what do they hire consultants? Do they do it internally? How does that typically happen?
So, there are ways, I now with AI, I mean, the same cycle happened with data, but typically people, will get a series of leaders in a room, or representatives from different parts of an organization in a room. They'll perhaps go through some use case workshops to generate ideas. And every consultant has their own four boxes as to how you prioritize these ideas and so forth. So I think that people usually start with some good intentions. I think it's really the discipline of staying on course and focusing, first of all, focusing on a series of use cases in a particular domain, so that you can go deep in a particular domain and get real results, and then you can kind of extend to other areas from there. So I think there's an impatience factor where we try to go wide instead of deep, perhaps. And then we don't build the requisite skills to be able to transfer to other parts of the organization. This is a complex problem. Each organization is different, but I think you have to fight that instinct to just want to solve a lot of problems and really be just relentlessly focused.
And okay, so let's say we've got the kitchen in place. At least it's where we need it to be. It might need to be remodeled a little bit, but we're like, okay, this is workable. We got our end in mind. We know what we're trying to achieve. Start to gather the recipes. Okay, we feel pretty good about that. Now we need to bring in like you said, the raw materials, or the ingredients that we're going to make for the meal. What how what are the issues that you've seen in your experience, or your interactions with other organizations? What do we typically see as some of the challenges when we start? Of course, we have the challenges of our own internal data, right? But the most robust models is when we can take our internal data and combine it with the right external data, so that we get the right flavors in our meal. So what are some of those challenges you've seen with bringing in those ingredients?
Yeah, I think that if you think of data as a raw material, the procurement infrastructure, so to speak, to procure data is not really that mature. I mean, you think of like industrial companies that have to procure energy. They've done this for years. They've got models. It's very sophisticated. Data in different organizations is at different levels of sophistication. But you know, we need more discipline around the process of thinking about what data we want to acquire, how we're going to acquire it, who do we trust that offers that data, how do we price it, how do we know how much to buy, how do we not overbuy, how do we buy what we need, how do we structure contracts? They can be complicated. Typically in organizations, this is a decentralized function, and so you have people buying duplicate data sets, and they may not even reconcile with each other. So it's really, there are lots of ways that this can be optimized, just like all sort of supply chains as a sector matures, have more discipline. So I think we're just early in the days of having organizational enterprise discipline around the acquisition of data. You may find parts of organizations that are very sophisticated because they need to be, but to have that at enterprise scale, you know, would be less common at this time.
Yeah, that, you know, I think people forget. I mean, data, we hear about AI and data all the time. We got to be data driven. And we forget that a lot of the data that's available for, you know, modeling or to use in our business really didn't come available until over the past 20 years. I mean, the idea of having all this customer sentiment data or this information, I know we'll come back to that, but knowing more about the individual, that's really a modern phenomenon. Like, we know we bought data forever from companies like, you know, Dun & Bradstreet or Bloomberg or, and that was a standard type of data, but it's like this modern phenomenon where we have so much data out there. And I don't want to steal the thunder from the next conversation that we're going to have, but that's maybe a lead in. But maybe a quick question. Is it easy in your experience to find multiple choices of data for a particular recipe or a particular use case? Is it, you know, to find the vendors who could potentially sell you that data? Is that an easy process?
You know, I don't think it's very easy. I was working with some small banks in another program that I'm involved with. And the question among all of these banks was that they didn't have the level of confidence that they wanted in their customer data. And they were wondering how they could how they could have more confidence. What was, you know, how could they have more complete records so they could see a customer 360? And they would give the example of when Silicon Valley Bank failed, you know, all banks wanted to be able to contact their customers to be able to give them a real-time update on what was happening at the banks. And every bank that was in this group said, we did not have current complete contact data for all of our customers. You know, certainly many of them, but I mean, something so obvious is a gap. So I actually said, well, have you worked with any third-party providers? Because there are verification services you can use to make sure you have the right name, address, social, contact information, and so forth. And so, you know, these are bankers, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. So I think that, yeah, the bigger companies know about some of these things, but knowing who do you trust, are these processes secure? Is my data secure? Am I being compliant? How do I know that the data that I'm buying, I'm getting at a good price? How do I know that I can trust it? So that's a journey that people have to go on to do that work and research.
Yeah, you know, you're getting to sort of the kernel of why we created Blue Street Data. It's as we, you know, I bought a lot of data in my professional past, and it's always, there's so much word of mouth. There's so much, like, there's less data about buying data than you would imagine. And so we thought, well, yeah, and we heard a lot about that. There's not a standard buying process.
Mhm.
And it's very difficult to find new suppliers. And when we do, how do you measure sort of the quality? You're a little bit nervous about bringing in a new vendor. And so he said, how can we make this easier? how can we, it should be easier, to go through the process. When you think about Amazon and you guys say, I want to buy a raincoat, you type in raincoat and you get, 25 different raincoats, and there's a price and there's, some measure of quality, whether it might be users have given their feedback. You can't do that, with data, and I think that's a problem that we're trying to solve in this community that we're building with Blue Street Data. Maybe, I'm sorry, go ahead, Allison. Yeah.
It's needed. I think that is a real gap in the market.
Yeah, I wanted to show just a very quick picture. Gonna share my screen again real quick. But looking at yeah, this slide right here, what we're putting together is the ability for organizations to say, hey, you know what? There's a data set I need for a particular use case. What I'd like to understand is who are the providers of those data sets that are out there where I could compare price and quality. So if you look at this little grid on your right, where you have price per asset, essentially on the y-axis. On the x-axis, you have quality, right? So you have price and quality. And so we should be able to understand through data available to us where the different vendors and data sets fit on this platform. So if you're in the upper left-hand corner where you have low quality and high price, you have to ask yourself, is that really the best decision in order to buy that? Of course, we would love to see opportunity, we would love to find the vendor who has a data set with very high quality and the lower price, which is this bottom right-hand corner that we see here. So a lot of the work that we're doing is to help both buyers and sellers. The buyers understand their choices, and the sellers to understand where they are in the spectrum of competitors or other providers. And one of the things that we wanted to do, Allison, is say, can we give companies, organizations an understanding of the quality before they ever buy, right? So what we have is these 5 categories on the left-hand side where we're gathering information about these data sets and suppliers so that we can give a type of score related to the quality of the data, so that you have more confidence in actually engaging with the seller if you're a buyer of data. So that's kind of the thought that we have, Allison. Any feedback on that?
I think this is terrific because there really is not the level of transparency in the marketplace to really understand what you're buying. And data lineage, that's a really great one to really understand where does data come from. That's a great analogy when you think of food. You want it when you eat things, you want to know, okay, farm to table, you want to know the life cycle of what you're consuming. The same as with data. So being able to understand that is important. The quality of the company that you're working with is very important. I mean, data is very sensitive. You want to make sure that you're compliant and secure. And also the ease of implementation is critical because you want to be able to acquire this data in a way that allows you to use it and implement quickly and successfully. So I think these are fantastic dimensions, and I think this is really going to be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. There's underneath each of these elements, there's 8 different factors. So 40 different factors we're really trying to be comprehensive in terms of understanding these elements of quality. So it'll be exciting, to work with companies and organizations in order to get the feedback on, is this providing you what you want? We just launched last week this engine, and so we're looking for early users, adopters, to help us understand the buyer journey even deeper, more deeply.
Well, I hope there are some people that are tuning in and are interested in being part of this community, because this is much needed.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. So let's let's sort of continue on. So we talked about this this concept of overall arching issues around making sure that you know the outcome and the recipe, et cetera, et cetera. What do you see as sort of on the banking side specifically? What are some of the use cases or the needs that that sector needs as compared maybe to other sectors, or just from your experience, where the opportunity is that that banks should be looking at?
So I think, getting your customer data really tight, I think that's opportunity number one for banks. We tend to have siloed systems with sometimes data is not consistent across systems. So I think that the marketplace offers a real opportunity to help banks really accelerate the cleanup of their customer data. So that would be where I would start if you're just at the beginning of your journey. I think that there's so much that can be done with external data. When you think about, I think there's like a maxim basically in any industry that it's much, the cost to sell an additional product or service to an existing customer is generally a fraction of the cost of acquiring a new customer. And I think that, when we talk about retail banking, what do the best retailers do? They really understand their customers. They really understand what their needs are. And how do they do that? Like, how would somebody understand me? Well, they need to have data about me. So I think that that a real opportunity where people can focus is to find ways to learn more about your current customers. You can do this with your own internal data and then extend that to external data, so that you're able to be more relevant to your customers and be able to offer more products and services to the customers that you have. Chances are your retail customers are consuming services at competitor institutions, not necessarily because that's something that they want to do, but just for, people don't like strategically go and do that. They probably would like their lives to be easier, but understanding when somebody might need a service and being right there and being able to offer something relevant to your customers at the exact right time, that sort of hyper personalization that is talked about. I think that's the most critical way to achieve organic growth. It seems so obvious. Banks have been trying this and working on this for years. But I think this is where it's really worth investing, because you've got customers that have no doubt many relationships outside of your bank and many opportunities that will be coming down the road that you could be the bank of choice for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. You position that or you compared it to the retail industry. Why do you think the retail industry sort of became so adept at that? And you look at an Amazon, you look at a Temu, you look at a Target, who you can go through the whole list, and they really have embraced that whole aspect of sort of knowing the customer and serving the customer, in their business. So they're doing it for profit. Why do you think that one industry is so far ahead of others, including, or maybe just even banking?
It's an interesting question. I think just intellectually, it's really interesting to look across industries and understand like why some industries adopt things more rapidly than others. I think that retailers have more of a product mindset. They have physical inventory, although you could argue Amazon does not, but somewhere along the lines there is physical inventory. And so I think there's like the lost sale. I mean, if Walmart was not good at having the right goods in the right store at the right time at the right season, they're gonna lose a sale, and they're gonna have. I think perhaps it's just the issue of the underlying business. There perhaps I've not like worked out some like algorithm to back up what I'm saying, but inventory in a sense, maybe drives a more aggressive posture towards being able to sell that inventory. Whether you're an airline and an unsold seat, you'll never achieve that revenue again. Banking, the opportunity cost of not selling is not a tangible, it's not a tangible cost.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm interested in this idea, and I'm gonna have to go think about that.
Yeah, you don't have wasted inventory, right? Because I mean, if you don't sell something at Walmart, it might go obsolete, or especially like a grocery store, you've got to, you've got to move the inventory. We don't have that problem in banking. That's something that's going to go stale.
We fundamentally, I know this is gonna sound like a bit of a knock, but I'm not throwing shade on banks. I don't think we have a retailing mindset. We ourselves as bankers and not retailers. And I think if we're serving a retail market, we need to think of ourselves as retailers. And that is a mindset shift. That's a resource allocation shift. That there's a lot that comes with that, but that would be my take.
Interesting. Yeah, I also think, in banking, I always think about banking as sort of more relationship driven than retail being more transactional driven. But that doesn't mean that we can't get that deep. Yeah, we should have a deep relationship with the customer, and the data, like you said at the very top, right? Data is our way of understanding our customers and potential customers.
I'll give you a good example. So of why you can be retailing is not just transactions, it's transactions and it's service, which can be delivered personally by humans, can be delivered digitally. But I shop at a particular store for some women's clothes that just happens to be down the street from me, and they've started to embrace like more sophistication around digital interactions and email. And so there should be a bank equivalent to the following, which is the other day I was looking at their clothes online. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm traveling. I see they have a new line of travel clothes. That seems kind of cool. Lo and behold, I wasn't, I wasn't doing a lot I don't think I was leaving digital footprints necessarily. Lo and behold, I got an email from the woman in the store that usually helps me. And she said, oh, we have a new line of pants. Thought this would be great for you for travel. And so I'm like, she's right. And I'm going to go into that store. So like, what's the banking equivalent of unique pants? You need travel pants, whether it's like my transactions are showing I'm doing a lot of traveling. Maybe the bank has a card with travel rewards. Maybe that could be pitched to me. How do we're leaving these hints of our behaviors. Like how can we use that data to understand people in a meaningful way? We throw this stuff around, like these ideas around, but like I don't think we are deliberate enough in thinking about how we can apply apply understanding our customer to having meaningful interactions that actually help our customer solve their own problems, which just makes them more loyal to us.
Great. And we're rapidly running out of time here. It's amazing how fast a half an hour goes. I know most of our viewers will probably watch us online, but if there's anybody that's actually on the live webinar, if you want to ask any questions in the chat, I think just to wind up the end of this, the end of our discussion, let me just move forward here. So if you want more information, if you're watching this, either sign up for our newsletter or schedule a call. We'd be happy to talk about you. But I would really encourage you to go to bluestreetdata.com and the launch of our new product, pqc.bluestreetdata.com, to see what, this transparency. I like the way that you phrase that, Allison, like bringing transparency to this market. But I'd like to maybe finish up and say, first of all, thank you, of course. I mean, you're just incredible to have on our call here, and look forward to doing more. But maybe that's the question. What do you think that we could do to help sort of the broad community in maybe another in the next one of these little webinars that we do.
I think it would be great to have an actual work use case workshop where we actually walk through a use case and talk about what's the problem we're trying to solve, what's the data we need to solve that problem, and actually go through how we make the recipe. I feel that when I've been in this role, seeing something tangible from, now I hate to say soup to nuts, I feel like I didn't intend for that to be a pun. I think you have to see things, you have to see real examples of things being built to understand what's possible. So I'm all about a use case workshop.
I love it. I'm signed up to it. We're gonna get that done. We're gonna get that pushed out. We're exactly at 1:30. So again, I want to say thank you so much, Allison, and we'll look forward to the next episode.
Terrific.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.